Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Nexus of Geek. This is Ariel, and Thank you for coming back to the channel. And today, I've sort of resisted the idea of going over a review, kind of review slash first impressions of the new 2024 Monster Manual, which dropped this week, last week, whenever it was. I got mine on Monday, and depending on whether you ordered it early online or bought it at a hobby store, then your mileage in terms of how much of a in-depth deep dive you have done on this book will vary. But nevertheless, I got mine earlier in the week. Today's Thursday. By the time this video hits YouTube, it might be Friday, and I will have to say that I've had a cursory look, not a real deep dive, and I do have a gaming show that I do on the radio, community radio, with my fellow gamer and friend Shane. And Shane, if you're looking if you happen to stumble upon this on YouTube, you will testify that you probably flipping through the books during the 1 hour long show that we had earlier today probably have a better idea of what the not only the mechanics or well, definitely the aesthetic of these monsters compared to the previous Monster Manual of 2014. I did have a couple of comparisons that I made and a couple of observations that I want to share with those with you now, because that's what people are talking about now in terms of the Dungeons and Dragons and this new 2024 edition. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room is, and the question that I really had about this Monster Manual coming in all the way back when it was when it was announced that it was going to be dropping in February, had to do with the CR issue. And obviously I'm not the only one. Even as far as back as 7 months ago, people on the interwebs, I turned to the interwebs to figure out the answer to the question, or what people were thinking about, and whether CR was going to be fixed in this new Monster Manual. In gear, one of the big, it's no secret that one of the big drawbacks, or one of the big criticisms, I should say, of the 2014 book is this the CR, which is the challenge rating of the monsters, was all over the place. People did think that it would be, according to the this Reddit post that I'm reading, that I'm looking at now, that people thought that it would be more accurate based on some of the preliminary videos and just some of the stats that were made available in the player's handbook. I think this was before the player's handbook dropped, or maybe a little. Actually, this actual post was in mid-August or so, so it was a week or so after Gen Con, which is when a lot of people got their hands on the first look on the actual book, player's handbook. Even before they had, I remember they had a few. Oops, sorry, I lost my place there. Let's go back. They had a few sample stat blocks. So what were some of the questions that people were asking? Based on the ancient green dragon we saw, maybe, although new characters are so much stronger, it's ironically even less accurate there. And that is a good point there. One of this random comments that I was looking at, and that's the concern that I had, that because the characters are so overpowered, so strong, that does it even make a difference, or could they even fix it to that point? I mean, the one good feature that I will say, having again, I haven't done a deep dive, but at the end of the book, and I mentioned this during the radio show earlier today, was the fact that in the back it has a nice little guide or index of all the creatures in the book, of which there are 500 or how many, I forget, I think it's 500 off the top of my head is what it said in the description. And yeah, there's an index in the back, and it lists all the creatures by challenge rating, which is nice. The 2014 book did not do that, so you just kind of have to kind of flip and see where in the scale they actually fell, which wasn't too kind of not as convenient. This first post or this comment is what I was thinking about too. Is for example, in my current campaign, we decided that we were going to do the milestone, or I decided we're going to do milestone versus XP, which is not unusual for a 5e group, and we ended up doing that. But the characters, once you get past level 10 or 12, like they always say, it becomes kind of unwieldy for a game to run to challenge the characters, which is one of the big flaws with 5e. That it doesn't go past a lot of campaigns on average, according to the statistics by Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, or the people that are putting together these metrics. They don't go past typically like level 10 or 11, and that's because of how overpowered and how much the characters get, how powerful they get. And so I experienced that too, and it's been pretty frustrating because and I've made videos about this. You can go back and look at earlier content where I talked about how I think the initiative combat initiative rule as it stands, which most people use, individual initiative as opposed to the alternatives like side initiative, are pretty broken in the sense that once you get all these stat bonuses on your PC side, for example, we have a barbarian who can, because of feats and other added bonuses, can go as high as 30, and it's really hard to beat at 30 initiative. Now that is one thing that we talked about. I noticed that in some of the creatures, like the Grail, for example, initiative is not tied completely to dexterity. Most of the time it still is. But your initiative bonus now comes from, there's an actual initiative score. So they didn't really address the CR issue as much, but they did do something about fixing initiative in the sense that it gives the monsters a little bit of a fighting chance, because of course if you are first in initiative and you're going by order with multiple attacks, like the barbarian in this that I'm referring to, he has like 6 attacks with a +6 bonus to initiative at level 20, and you might say, well, of course he's like level 20, he should be fighting like gods or like bigger threats, but even then I think like Tarask, which is like the highest CR creature, is only like a 30, and you gotta roll really high to get like a really high initiative to match the things that the PCs are doing. So let's see, according to Chris Perkins, and this was 6 months ago, so things have changed now, who I probably trust most out of anyone on the design team, that said 90% of the spell rebalance have been good, with the remainder being mind-boggling off the mark. I suspect the monster manual is much the same. So they're talking about the spells and back then. So the monster manual, according to the book, the video that they initially put out 6 months ago, prior to the book dropping, has 500 plus monsters, more apex monsters. I don't know about that. I mean, there's you can go by that glossary and you tell me, if you watch this video, are there more apex monsters? I haven't quantified it or done an account analysis, but I do have some of the reservations with the CRs being off kilter and the characters being so overpowered. Expanded monster families, yes, but not in all cases. There's a lot that has been made about the orcs and how the orcs are not even in the monster manual 2024 because they're playable races. And I'm not going to rehash that whole argument, but the 2014 has expanded orc families. The new one doesn't even have them in there. Stat blocks improvements. There's a few, like the ancient dragon. The dragons do look a little bit better in terms of like they brought some features that they took away previously, but they have them back now. Like I was looking at my monster manual from first edition. Yeah, I bought that back in the 80s. I still own it. It was like $8 on back in the day on Toys R Us. And if you look at the dragons there's some things that I like. And one of the things that has been kind of done away with is back then you rolled a percentile die, and you had a percentage chance of your dragon actually doing a couple of things. One of them was a magic ability, so they didn't always have access to magic, but there were magic resistance based on their stat blocks, and they also had a percentage of even talking. Some of them can't even really talk in the language of that of the encounters. There's monster treasure suggestions. Okay, that doesn't really fix the power imbalance, but it's good to know that they suggest different treasures for different monsters. And all stat blocks are alphabetical. The exception is the gelatinous cube, which is under G. Example rather. Example is gelatinous cube under G, not under O for OOS. And yeah, that's one of the things that I really did find annoying, where they didn't have a true alphabetical listing of these creatures. They were kind of all over the place, and I guess they did fix that, which is good ease of use. So let's see. Couple more I guess that was one of the last comments on this thread. Let's see. Huck Law said it's hard to fully tell. We have seen a few things like ancient green dragons. We also have skeletons, warhorse, minotaurs. So they were talking about even back then how the dexterity bumps. They got dexterity bumps, and so that again, the dexterity in it was like the main where your bonuses come from. In fact, there's a variant rule that has been suggested by I think Professor DM and other YouTube gaming D&D YouTubers, which is also straight out of the variant rules in the the 2014 DMG actually, and it talks about how you can use different forms of initiative, side initiative, which was it was a thing back in first edition where you roll. Back then we the book. The core books had you roll a d6, but now in this alternate version, modern version, you roll a d20 because everything's like d20, and then the highest one goes, and then all the monsters on one side or the heroes on the other side, the two combatants, they all take their actions, and then they change. You can change the initiative every round instead of having a fixed initiative, which I kind of like. But more often than not, the individual initiative is what determines the battle order, because that's what people are used to. So that's I think that's one of the things, the initiative and the CRs. And also the fact that, if you're a level 20 character and you have a +6 proficiency as a PC, not many things are going to stand up to you, especially if you have multiple attacks like a barbarian does with multiple rages at that high amount of level. So that's one of the things that has kind of discouraged me about running 5e campaigns or 5e games. It's still fun to do one-shots, but I'm thinking that I did a video a while back ago on OSR rules applied to to your 5e games, and I'm trying that out with. It's only had one session, but I'm trying that out with my online Discord game, where we use some OSR rules to make it like a more resource-intensive game, and and to have that. Affect the outcome. Death saves, for example, that's one alternate rule that I'm thinking of using the more. The DMG I think has some. again, the 2014 DMG, and there's some online that I kind of picked up here and there. And one of them is like you roll, and if you go down to 0 hit points, you roll and you stabilize or die. So I like that. And, it's pretty. Imagine that roll. Just your other party members still have a chance to heal your stabilize you, but they gotta get to you. And if they don't make it on time, then you could die. And there's other things that kind of make the game a little bit more challenging, I think. And I think that I prefer that, because otherwise I'll just go and play like an older edition. But I still like a lot of elements of 5e, and this is something that people are very willing to try. More people are like getting into Dungeons and Dragons, have been getting into Dungeons and Dragons since 2020 and the pandemic, and even beyond that, just because of the streamlined nature of the of 5e. But I think I'm going to try some of the continue to try and report back and say, okay, this is working, or this is some feedback. I'd like to know what you guys in the community think also. What is your impression of the 2024 Monster Manual, if you've read it through? The aesthetic is pretty good. Everything looks good. The artwork is all worth it. When I first got it, I felt to be honest, I felt a little bit, not ripped off, but I was like, okay, this book is nice, but the problem is, if I want to have orcs as antagonists, for example, just because the orc discussion has been out there for so long, and this book brings it back again. If I want to have them as antagonists, and I want to have multiple different categories, like a warlord, or I don't know, a chieftain, I don't know what they call them. They have, the hierarchies when they're doing combat and their culture. If I want to have them be chaotic, evil, they can be. I don't necessarily have to follow the core rule where they're just they're playable races but not a monster per se. But if I want to do that, then it sort of defeats then I have to dig out the 2014 Monster Manual, and there's some things I like in the new one and then the old one, so it kind of defeats the purpose of streamlining for me, because I still have to refer back to the old manual, which is annoying. Was one of the, and I'm going on a tangent here, so forgive me, but that's one of the reasons I didn't like two reasons that I didn't like the Monsters of the Multiverse book that's been out several years now. But I did want to ultimately buy it because I figured, well, it's one reference instead of having to carry I do like the hardbacks as opposed to having to scroll on the digital screen like on D&D Beyond or Roll20 or whatever virtual tabletop or program you're using. But and that's why it's one reference book and it has all the creatures, but it really doesn't. I mean, dragons are not in there. What they did is they put together like the three sources, and I'm talking about the mom book, what my friend Shane calls the mom book, the multi monsters of the multiverse. And I have a lot of problems with that book, but I won't rehash them here. But one of the main things is Bolo's Guide to Monsters, which you can no longer buy a print copy unless you get it in the secondary market, or the Mordecai's Tome of Foes, which is where a lot of these creatures were pulled from. They're in that multiverse book, but there's no lore. They stripped out all the lore. So the actual older books, in my opinion, were a better buy, and I've said this before. But I would still like to get. I still was pondering and considering getting that book just because it would make referencing easier. But then I figured actually it doesn't, because it doesn't have everything. And that's kind of how I feel about this new monster manual, where they're saying it's great because you saw the sales pitch, 500 monsters and all that, but really if I want orcs to be antagonists, I have to refer back to the old manual. If I want to look, the Perkins and the game developers did say, the same thing with the playable races for the Player's Handbook 2024. If you don't find the Ranger, for example, they for any class they actually have list 2 or 3, which seem to be the more playable or the more popular ones. But if there's something in there that's not in there, like the Monster Slayer Ranger, for example, you can still play it. but you have to refer back to what they're calling legacy rules now, which are 10 years old, which is basically 5e. So if I have to refer back to that, then what's the point of upgrading? So anyway, those are my thoughts. I wanted to share them with you before abandoning this topic once and for all. And I will use this reference in my game table. I own it, and I do like a lot of the formatting is good, and there's easy reference. Like I mentioned, the index with the CR, the creatures by CR level in the back is a pretty good thing. But I guess you can also get it online. So it's up to you. I like hardbacks, and I'm old school, so I like to have the printed page. But what do you think? Is it worth it? Did they fix the CR problem to your satisfaction, or do they still have a long way to go? And then what are other issues that you foresee, although you encountered with the new 2024 core? Not just the Monster Mine. We have all three of them now. So what's your take on the updates? All right, so that's all I got. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We'll be back on the weekend. We're on the cusp of another weekend. Yay! And stay dry if you're in a wet zone like here in Northern California. It's gonna be raining on and off for several days. So I hope you have a great couple of days, and then I will talk to you during the D&D Saturday, Sunday, one of those days. We'll have fresh content here on the Nexus. Thank you and take care. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to like this video if you want more.